When you make decisions, you don't want to second guess yourself. And I'm going to explain what I mean on that on this segment of the Get Geezer. If this is your first time checking out the Get Geezer, if you're a returning visitor of the Get Geezer, thanks for coming by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button. Give my content a thumbs up. Share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I am on my way driving back to Columbia, South Carolina. My day actually began early this morning before sunup, and it involved, and I'll explain further along into this segment of the Get Geezer, it involved a brokered opportunity from Duncan, South Carolina, going to Atlanta. And then on my way back from Atlanta, I happened to catch another brokered opportunity that's taking me back to Columbia, and ironically, 10 minutes from my house. Now, before I go, for authenticity's sake, a lot of the thoughts that I actually put together occurred while I was in Atlanta, or as I was leaving Atlanta. But what I want to do what I want to do in setting things up is share with you how when you're out here doing your grind, doing your hustle, when you're out here trying to go about your business, you're going to make decisions. And what you have to do is commit to those decisions. You have to believe that, hey, you made the best decision possible. Now, I get it. Before I go any further, I get it that I've been a big critic of thirsties, and but that's not for this particular conversation. What I'm going to share with you is how I had made some decisions yesterday that set up for how today has turned out. Today, Thursday, April 4th, 2024. I'm going to segue right into those initial thoughts that I put together probably about 45 minutes to an hour ago as I was leaving Atlanta. I am now in the Atlanta suburbs, and this is actually the second half of my day. I started the day with a load pickup I started the day with a brokered opportunity pickup from Duncan, South Carolina, which is on the other side of the state in the Greenville-Spartanburg area, the I-85 corridor. And that trip went from there to Atlanta. And so 106, the agreed upon rate was $400. And it was for a broker that I've done multiple loads from, particularly as they pertain to the Atlanta market. Now, whenever I come to Atlanta, and I've talked about this a number of times, I'm always looking to connect on yet another opportunity. So the last time I came to Atlanta, which is about almost 2 weeks ago, I had a brokered opportunity from Charleston to Atlanta. The agreed upon haul rate was $500, but it ended up paying $525, if memory serves me correct. The last time that I had extra money, I guess one would say, with respect to my coming through Atlanta, was last fall, in fact, whereby I had a brokered opportunity that took me from Charlotte to Texas. It was Temple, Texas, but I stopped off in Atlanta and picked up 2 additional brokered opportunities that paid an additional $550, $600. So that entire road trip earned me over $1,900. So it's a big deal for me today to be able to catch a second load. This one is going from Atlanta to Columbia. Of all places, Columbia. When I connected to from Atlanta last fall, there was a drop-off in the Clemson area, And then the next day I was to drop off in the Asheville area for that road trip. But this is a true connection where I was able to book something going back towards South Carolina, a true booking situation. And the offer amount was $225. I got $300. I had actually asked for $400. And truth be said, I actually hung up initially, and then I thought about it. I looked at the miles again, and I'm like, well, the miles there aren't as bad as it appears, because I'm not, for whatever reason, I looked at the miles again. I thought that it was going to be paying a little less, and it paid $1 less than going to Atlanta. You know, I've talked about also when I'm thinking of Atlanta, particularly from Charlotte or from Charleston, I'm looking for a minimum of $500. Duncan is one of those in-betweeners where I'm looking for $400. I kind of look at that like if it was an actual pickup like I've done before. There was one from Fountain Inn, which is a little farther down the road. Depending on which way you want to talk about it, that's down the road. But Fountain Inn actually is more like when you're driving from Columbia to Greenville, it's before you get to Greenville. Duncan, on the other hand, is in between Greenville and Spartanburg, but it depends on which way you go. The faster way is to drive from Columbia to, as if you're going to Spartanburg, and then cut over, and it's like from the moment you get off of I-26 to where I had to pick up, where I picked up from, it's probably 15 minutes tops. All right, so all that is to say, so altogether I'm earning $700 today. And the cool thing about it, the drop-off location in Columbia is 10 minutes from the house. Literally 10 minutes from the house. Can't get any better than that. Should I have gotten more money? I sure was trying. Like I said, I asked for $400. I hung up on them at $300, but then when I did some recalculating, it comes out to about $1.40 a mile going back to Columbia. I've already got $2.40 a mile going from Duncan to Atlanta. I'm thinking that this is going to cover all the miles driven from home back to Columbia. So this is more of a win situation. Definitely more of a win situation. If you really want to count all the miles, a lot of times when I discuss miles, I've talked about just loaded miles, and the deadhead miles are deadhead miles. But this is covering from where I left home, going to Duncan, and then from Duncan to Atlanta, and then from Atlanta literally back home. It can't get any better than that, then. Yeah, it really can't. So I'm getting $1.40 a mile to go back home. Again, some may scoff and say that was a thirst move, but when you look at the greater scheme of things for today, no, it wasn't a thirst. That wasn't thirst. That was actually just good opportunity that came your way. Now, one other thing I want to talk about with this particular run, and is that, or at least this particular day, I actually, and I held back on saying this though, but in the teaser I mentioned, hey, sometimes you have to make certain decisions that may be for your sometimes you have to make certain decisions, and you have to make them real fast. And yesterday, Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024, I went back and forth with a broker over a load from Summerville, South Carolina to Ridgeville, South Carolina. We're talking about a run that probably would take 25 minutes. And I was asking for $250 for that run because I've gotten as much as $235 for that run. Actually, I've gotten as much as altogether, about driving from that particular area, I've gotten as much as $315 from that area going to the Volvo plant, which is where I was going. So what I found out though was that the pickup was yesterday, but the drop-off would not be until this morning at 6 a.m. So then what the broker was asking me to do was to hold that cargo for overnight. And I'm thinking that's going to be a lose situation, because then I would have to pick up, because now I thought that it was a situation where I would be kind of on my way back from the greater Charleston area, and then I would have to circle back and then make this quick hit, and I'd say that's a win situation. In other words, the pickup would have been yesterday and the drop-off would have been yesterday afternoon. And just backing up, the reason why I was in the greater Charleston area yesterday, I had somewhat of it was a gig app, but it's more of an expedited brokered opportunity. It was a hybrid opportunity, and it was going from in fact, I talked about it on this segment of the Gig Geezer. It was from Florence. It was a pickup in Columbia, going to Florence, and then over to Pawleys Island. But Pawleys Island is an hour and a half, about an hour and 45 minutes from where I would have been picking up. But when I was in contact with the broker, I was probably about an hour and 15 minutes away from the pickup location. Well, anyway, so you can make an argument whether I missed out on $200 or not, because that's what his final number was, $200. I told him $250, but even then, when I think about it, $250 would have been just an absolute L, because I would have had to go. I picked up in Somerville, going to Columbia, and then had to come back to Ridgeville or Somerville. It's all in the same area, but it would have been a loss. It would have been a loss all the way around. Now, what might have bailed me out, though, was that I also had a catering opportunity, a nice catering opportunity, in fact. It was a $1,400 order that was paying $167.50. Well, I decided I'm switching over to some Atlanta traffic as I'm leaving. Now, I'm thinking that that's pretty good. $167, maybe I just start the day off at $167. But then, as it would happen, as I was out on a yesterday evening, as well as a quick bungee opportunity, I happened to get a phone call first, and I ignored it. But then I happened to catch an email from the brokers that I'm dealing with today. Same brokers. And so I tried to call, didn't get over nobody. So then I responded to the email. Then I called again, and I spoke with the lead broker, who's actually been the person whom the broker I often deal with. This broker is the one who approves the money. Well, that said, we got to talking. He said it was still open, and he was familiar with who I was. And I told him, Duncan, Atlanta, $400. Okay, we'll do that. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I think that's a better move. I'm at $400 as opposed to a potential $367, or at a minimum $167, which way you want to look at it. Now, I understand that when you're thinking of strategy and all, the catering opportunity would have made a lot of sense, because I would have been in Columbia. The pickup would have been in downtown Columbia, going out to Blythewood, out to an area that I'm very much familiar with. But then again, I still would have to try to find other money during the day. Well, I'm thinking here's a $400 on one swing. I wouldn't call it a home run. I'd call it getting on base, and then go from there. So as I'm heading into Atlanta, I happened to look on one of the load boards, and I noticed that the broker had something out from Atlanta to Columbia. And so I called, and I wasn't warming up to the number, the $300 offer. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? This may not be bad, man. I mean, $700 for the day. I know that there's some thoughts, there's some schools of thoughts on doing something like this now. You're not getting the money that you really want, but yet you're getting. This is where some people will sometimes take a little less for a return trip home. Actually, I want to try to get as much money as I can. I've said this 3 times during this particular segment. And by the way, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment or in any other segment, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. So I called back, and the load was still open. And so I guess this one had my name on it. And so I contacted the broker the lead broker whom I'd spoken to get the Duncan opportunity. I explained to him what was going on, and he said, oh, if you can get there by 2 o'clock, we got no problem, because I was going to be in Atlanta to the drop-off location by 11:15. So it was a question of me getting back over to the airport and all, and printing out documents before I picked up. So that's where I'm at now. When the next time when I join with this particular load, I'm going to be showing some footage from the Columbia drop-off location, and I'll be wrapping up this particular segment of the Gig Geezer. All right, I'm back to wrap up this particular segment of the Gig Geezer. The drop-off location that I've mentioned was the type of place that you do not want to try to document things on their premises, just by the nature of the place. I've waited until I got back to the Gig Geezer compound to wrap up this specific segment. The teaser, the opening statement of this segment is about not second-guessing yourself once you've made certain decisions. And so it turned out I made the right decision by yesterday in wrapping up, passing on that brokered opportunity that was from Somerville to the Volvo plant. But then also, as it turned out, passing on the catering opportunity, even though that was local and way less miles, I ended up making multiples of the potential money that I could have made if I had done the Somerville gig and the catering gig. Those two alone would have gotten to $367. Do the math. I made almost double today. Even though I had to drive more miles, I still came out ahead because of the money earned covered all the miles. In fact, that's the other thing about this particular opportunity. The other thing about this particular day, this is the one time where the money earned, the trips, the loads, the brokered opportunities that I actually accepted and completed, it actually was a round trip of a situation. Perhaps a lot of it has to do with the Columbia market. It is not a big transport freight place. It is more than likely that something like this could have occurred out of Atlanta or Charlotte way before Columbia. And I'll even throw Charleston ahead of Columbia and Savannah ahead of Columbia because of the potential freight leaving there and coming back. So that's all I have to share for this segment of the Gig Geezer. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you like the content that's been provided in this segment or in any other segment, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome comments in the section below. I'm Inwood Blaine. As always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.